Pregame show here live from Wells Fargo Center. I'm Brian Smith along with Jason Martinez, once again secured in a off-site location tonight. Jason, it's a little bit rough to go, but we appreciate you toughing it out.
Yeah, it's been up and down. One day I was feeling better the other day, and now I've been smacked in the head again. I got the heating pad on standby over here. It's been quite the experience.
Well, hopefully the All-Star break will do you good here. It's coming up here
Oh,
for the Flyers. This is the final home game before the All-Star break for Philadelphia. The Los Angeles Kings here in town tonight as they continue a fairly long road trip. Commonplace for them. They do this stuff all the time. But out here, of course, on the East Coast, visiting a bunch of the teams that are out this way before they head back home for getting ready for their All-Star break and things. They have already been in Nashville and Chicago, have the Kings, and they've got stops in Florida, Tampa Bay, and Carolina, heading south from here after this one. They come out here, they play these games. They've actually got 2 days off out here on the road before going to Florida and Tampa for a back-to-back, and then they're going to have their week off on the week after the All-Star break as the league will kind of split things up. As for the Flyers, they've got this one here tonight and 2 more before they head back home, and they've got the week off before the All-Star game. But here tonight, it's a LA Kings team that, the Flyers saw them back during the trip out to California between Christmas and New Year's, and we were able to take care of things with the Flyers in that contest, and looking to duplicate that tonight against the Kings team that has certainly had a pretty good year. This is a Los Angeles club that's on its way back up. Flyers, though, got the 4-2 win in L.A. back on New Year's Eve. And, it's just about duplicating a lot of that stuff. John Tortorella, again, game to game, they don't really care who they're playing. They just want to worry about their own game and hopefully do what they need to do to get the win.
yeah, I think Torts heading into the break, Bry, is looking for probably some consistency. It's been kind of up and down a little bit lately. And look, part of that's the opponents they've had and the schedule they've had. You've had opponents of varying degrees of skill. Like we saw Winnipeg on Sunday, and that is a highly skilled team and a team that executed very well. Flyers found themselves down 3-0 in that game, battled all the way back. And you could tell by Torts' frustration. I know you and I haven't spoke on the air since that 90-second press conference that he had, but you could sense his frustration. And it was the frustration, I think, lied around the fact that, they battle all the way back like that. They kill off a 5-on-3 and those 2 penalties, and then a goal goes in that can't go in.
Right.
And so I think he was gutted for a lot of his teammates who gutted their way back into that game. So I think that's where his frustration lied after that one. So what he's looking for, I think, is consistency in goaltending, consistency up front, consistency in execution, and consistency by not making a lot of mistakes. He talked about 2 goals in the first period against Winnipeg, that we make 2 mistakes and we pull it out of the back of our net. So those things can't happen.
Yeah, and there's some question as to whether that's a ongoing problem for Felix Sandstrom. There's been some analysis of the games he's played in the NHL so far. I think the number I saw was 15 games played, and maybe 11 of those there was a goal that needed to be stopped, and that's obviously something that can't continue to happen. But again, you're talking about a guy who has not really been able to establish any kind of consistency, at least not at this level, just in terms of, coming in and playing a game and then don't play for 3 weeks. And, he come in and play a game and then he gets sick. And then next thing you know, he doesn't go on a trip. And then he's back in the American Hockey League for a couple of weeks where he, is pretty comfortable playing pretty well. But, it's a tough problem to solve in terms of, bringing him along and figuring out, okay, how are we going to, try to get him more acclimated at the NHL level.
Yeah, it's a really difficult proposition, which is, that's part of the equation. You want to get this guy consistency in play because obviously the last couple of years, coupled with, the pandemic and everything, and he just hasn't gotten in a lot. And he's here at the NHL level. He's not the starter, so he's not going to see a ton. Carter Hart's the starter, and he's going to get the bulk of the workload. And it's hard to develop a rhythm as a goaltender and weed those things out. Plus, a lot of the games he got into, Bry, team wasn't giving him run support. So that one goal that gets in that you'd like to have back means more because you're not outscoring the problem. You score 6 goals and you give up 3, and one of the ones you let in is not that is one that you should save. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But when you have trouble scoring and, he gets a lot, obviously, of the back-to-backs, and that's not ideal. So the life of a backup goaltender, it's good money, but it's not the most promising of environments for you as a goaltender.
It's something you have to have a bit of a thick skin, a bit of a mental toughness to handle. That's certainly for sure.
Yeah.
You go out there again, in a lot of times in environments that aren't the most beneficial to the team in front of you. And you're right, it has been a little bit of struggle with giving them goals to work with and things along those lines. So, we'll see if, what happens here over the next few days. Flyers only have the 2 games left before the break, which, of course, are coming up on this road trip, 2 games over the course of 3 nights. And then, during the break, it would not surprise me, necessarily to see the Flyers. Again, they've got obviously Harrison playing down there right now with Lehigh Valley. With Sandstrom, can't go down unless he clears waivers. So probably wouldn't be surprised me if he's just kind of getting the time off like everybody else. Which again, maybe not necessarily the best thing for you as a goaltender if you're going to have 10 days off to try to come back and jump back into things. But again, it's just the nature of where we are right now.
Yeah, and again, that speaks right to that on-off thing. You just can't get into a rhythm, and that position, Bri. There's a lot of rhythm to it, and a lot of feel, and a lot is predicated between the years with confidence, and it's hard to get it when you don't play very often. If you go out and you have a poor performance, or you go out and you play pretty well, like he played the other night, except that one goal.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to wash that one when you're not going to get back in there for a while, and. For any player, any athlete, you have a bad performance, you want to get right back on the beam and get back out there. But that's not the life of a backup goaltender. It's not a luxury you get afforded. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's take our first break. When we come back, we'll break down this Los Angeles Kings team a little bit, see what they've been up to. And, of course, we've got the Lions coming up for you. A little bit more about this one with the Flyers and the LA Kings coming up here from Wells Fargo Center. We'll be back with more in just a moment here on the Fanatic Flyers pregame show on BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. Welcome back in Wells Fargo Center. Flyers and the Los Angeles Kings are coming up here tonight as the Flyers again wrap up their pre-All-Star break home schedule. They're going to be in action for 2 on the road here later this week. Thursday in Minnesota and Saturday in Winnipeg take the next week off. And then the All-Star game for the NHL will be played the weekend of February the 4th. And the Flyers will be back here at Wells Fargo Center the week after that. So it's a little bit of a break coming up here for everybody involved. And
thank God.
Yeah, running back down the grind, except for those of us who work for the lacrosse team, too. We got a couple of games coming up, so that's going to be fun. We've actually got a guest tonight later on. We're going to talk with Kevin Finneran in the first intermission tonight. His number 11 is being retired here at Wells Fargo Center before the Wings and Buffalo game on Friday night, so we'll chat with him about that honor. That's all coming up in the first intermission. This Los Angeles Kings team here, again, coming in the third game of a fairly long road trip, at least by our standards. The Kings kind of do this sort of thing all the time. And coming up from the back end up, we'll talk about Phoenix Copley, the starting goaltender tonight, a guy in his first year with the Kings organization. Really looked like he was going to be the next, big name goaltender that the Washington Capitals developed. But that ended up not being the case. And he leaves the Caps organization in the offseason, leaves Hershey. Now he's out with Los Angeles. He spent some time with their American Hockey League affiliate in Ontario, California, I should say. Again, a goaltender that still potentially has the opportunity to make a run at the NHL level, but is running out of time a little bit here if he's going to catch on for good.
Yeah, I mean, Washington's been a bit of a goalie graveyard since that year when, even when they won the Cup, Holtby lost that starting job heading into the playoffs, if you recall. Regained it, made that unbelievable save, rode it to a Cup final. Holtby's gone. They bring in Samsonov. He's gone. He's now in Toronto. Phoenix Copley came in. He's now gone. But how about this? I mean, there's been a lot of guys trying to supplant Jonathan Quick for many years now. And Cal Peterson, he was put through waivers, as a matter of fact, earlier this season. And Copley's got a record of 13-3. A 279 goals against average. The save percentage is rather paltry, though. It's an 896 below 900, which is surprising considering the results that he's gotten. I mean, 13-3 is a good record. Yeah. You look at Quick, who's played the most games. I mean, he's 8-11-4. But Copley, I mean, he may be the guy that they end up going to here. If they make the playoffs, I mean, if they made the playoffs today, I imagine he'd be the guy.
It really seems like that. And, again, it's with all the names that have come through at Los Angeles over the years, that one constant has been, Jonathan Quick.
10-year contract. This is the last year of it.
Yeah, believe it or not.
Crazy. Yeah.
We've kind of joked over the years that, the Flyers may have his kryptonite just from the standpoint of Kim Dillaval basically brought him along.
Yeah.
The goaltending coach for the Los Angeles Kings before he came to Philadelphia, and so knows everything about him. But sooner or later, that flame is going to go out a little bit in terms of what Kim can bring to a team about the LA's Kings goals.
Well, remember that game they played against Los Angeles? All three goals that the Flyers scored, the last one was an empty netter, were all the same. They took away Quick's eyes. They had him default low. And when he defaults low, he's not the biggest guy to begin with. He's only 6'1", and by goalie standards today, that's not that big. But when he defaults low, the glove hand tends to sag. They beat him high glove, short side on all three goals, including the one from Noah Cates just inside the blue line, which turned out to be a big one. I think it was a shorthanded goal, as a matter of fact. But Patrick Brown, if you recall, was driving the net to create that screen. So that's what the Flyers are going to need to do tonight, Brian. They're going to need to create traffic around Copley, make life difficult. They got some veteran players on this team that have been around a while. Got players like Quick, but he's not playing tonight, but like Andrei Kopitar and Drew Doughty. But they also got a lot of young guys on this team, and it's kind of a handing of the baton here to Kevin Fiala's team. He's leading them in points with 49 points. They traded for Phil Deneau, and Phil Deneau has put up really good offensive numbers, and he's never been known as an offensive play driver or a guy who puts up points. He's been more of a guy that can defend really well from the center position, but he's been good offensively for this team as well. So the Kings, it's a bit of a transition time for them, but they're a team that also didn't tear it all the way down to rebuild it a little bit.
Just again, looking at what LA is doing right now, they're having obviously a very good year. They've been able to climb back up the standings a little bit after sinking really low over the past few seasons. But, right now in the Pacific Division, sitting third, just 1 point behind Seattle, 2 points behind Vegas. So they are right there in the thick of things. They are entering. Well, like you said, they're on the third game of a road trip here. But listen to this 5-week stretch that they've got. Again, they've got an All-Star break in here as well. But this is a 6-game trip. Nashville, Chicago here, Florida, Tampa, Carolina. Then they've got their break. Come back from the break, they're home for 3 out of 4. Then another 5-game trip. They got to come back out here. They play Minnesota first, and then the Devils, the Islanders, and the Rangers in a 3 and 4. And then on the way back to Los Angeles, they got to make a stop in Winnipeg.
Oh, yeah, let's just stop off in Winnipeg real quick.
On the way, right?
Can we leave the same night?
So after that, they've only got one big trip left, and it's going to be in their division: Calgary, Edmonton, Seattle, Vancouver, and Vegas, with a home game mixed in there. So this is kind of, I think, the stretch here where it's going to really kind of set where the LA Kings are when they. It's going to take them right up to the trade deadline. This trip ends on this whole mess ends on February the 28th. And they're going to have an idea at that point, I think, of what they're doing as far as playoffs runs and whether they're buyers, sellers, holders, whatever you have at the trade deadline.
Yeah, that's going to be a really important stretch in these 2 long road trips. They're not easy either. I mean, when you look at that one, Minnesota, good team. New Jersey, good team. Islanders right now are really struggling. Rangers, though, good team. Winnipeg, good. That's a tough road trip. Minnesota, New Jersey, Islanders, Rangers, and the Jets. Wow, that is not an easy trip. That'll be all the finding out they need to find out about themselves right there.
And an interesting thing about this team, and I don't know why this is, but again, third in the Pacific Division, right there with Vegas, Seattle, Edmonton. It's all clustered up, and really Calgary's there as well. But when you look at goal differential, Vegas is a +17, Seattle's a +22, Edmonton right behind them a +22. LA Kings are -8 in goal differential, which is again, it's an interesting phenomenon. They've scored far fewer goals than the Edmonton Oilers, and they've given up more, but they're a point ahead of Edmonton in the standings with one. Edmonton's got a game in hand, but just kind of interesting the way that's all fallen together over the course of the season.
It's why a lot of people don't believe in this Kings team. They see that negative goal differential and they look at it and they go, that's kind of a flashing sign that this team, their record is not sustainable. I mean, you look at Edmonton. I mean, they score a ton of goals because obviously they got Draisaitl and they have McDavid. So if they're ever negative in goal differential, that's kind of shocking. But you look at Seattle, and that team is having a really good year. They've actually played 3 less games than Los Angeles, but are up on them by 1 point. So, and they're 7-2-1 in their last 10. We'll see a home and home with Seattle coming up in a couple of weeks. But yeah, that's the one thing, that goal differential thing is the one that kind of people point to when they look at the Kings and want to point out their flaws. And again, do they have the goaltending? You look at Copley's record, it's good, but that save percentage is .896. That's not great. So that may be the Achilles heel for this team. Maybe they're looking for goaltending at the deadline. Who knows?
And again, big part of it, going back to December, they had a stretch where they played 7 games, and of those 7 games, 5 of them went to extra time, and they were 4-1 in those 5. So they've been able to get those extra points in the shootouts and by taking things past, and that's big. That's why the Flyers a lot of times find themselves at a big disadvantage having the shootout record that they have, because they just can't grab those extra points.
Yeah, I'll agree with Connor McDavid. He actually went on the record and said we shouldn't have shootouts. We should have a 10-minute 3-on-3. And what's wrong with the tie after that? And,
right.
I mean, it's going to be rare if you play 10 minutes of that 3-on-3 and find a way to penalize the team that pulls it out of the zone on purpose.
Yes, that's
a
whole nother ball game. But those Edmonton Oilers, by the way, we thought we were going to watch them miss the playoffs with those guys. They've won 6 in a row now, and they are right back in it. So watch out for them. As for this Kings team up front, we talked about the goaltending, but if you told me that coming into this year that Kevin Fiala was going to be their leading scorer here heading into the All-Star break, I'm not sure I would have necessarily expected that. But he's having a point per game season: 16 goals, 33 assists, 49 points, and the goal scoring on this team is pretty well spread out. They've got 6 guys in double digits in goals, led by 19 from Adrian Kempe. So I think that's been a big secret to their success this year, is that they're getting contributions from all over the place.
Yeah, it's really well balanced, right? And they're a team that doesn't have that super high end, offensive player. And Kopitar put up nice points in his prime, but he's more of like a Sean Couturier type player. A guy who can defend in all zones and attack in all zones and kill penalties and take really key face-offs. But they don't have that super dynamic high end player that can just wow you offensively. They didn't even have that really with their cup teams.
Right.
I mean, they had Carter, they had Richards, they had Brown, and it was always a team that was built on the sum of its parts. And obviously, you got Doughty back there, which was a huge element. I mean, he controlled the game and played so many minutes. But Doughty's not young anymore, and Kopitar is not young anymore. And he's talking about Fiala. I mean, he's a real nice pickup for them.
Well, we'll get back to looking at this game here in just a minute. We're going to take our final break. When we come back, we'll run down the lines for you tonight, line combinations for the Flyers, and you've probably heard them before, but we'll go through that for you and bring you up to our countdown to face-off with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates. They are diligently preparing for the Flyers and the Los Angeles Kings. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll be back with more here on the Fanatic Flyers pregame show and the BetRivers.com Flyers broadcast network. Welcome back in Wells Fargo Center. Flyers and the Los Angeles Kings coming up here tonight. Brian Smith, Jason Martinez here with you on the Fanatic Flyers pregame show and our countdown face-off with Timmy and Coatsy coming up here in just about 6 minutes' time. But the Flyers, again, keeping things the same. And we keep saying this, and it keeps kind of ringing true that the Flyers are keeping things the same to start the game. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay the same the whole game. And more often than not, I feel like it kind of doesn't. But they are going to go with the same old combinations that they have had here over the past few weeks or so. Farabee, Cates, and Konechny up top on that top line. James Van Riemsdyk with Morgan Frost and Owen Tippett. Kevin Hayes, Scott Lawton, and Wade Allison, and then Nick Delorier, Patrick Brown, and Zach McEwen on the fourth line. I had a chance to talk with Patrick Brown today, actually, and just kind of noticing the fact that, usually a fourth line that's the line that guys come in and out of the lineup on. That's the line that, that's where usually you don't see a whole lot of consistency. But he's saying that, the fact these guys have been playing together game in, game out for 3 weeks now, it's pretty beneficial to them just in terms of they know where each other's going, they know where to expect each other to be, and they've really been able to play off that.
No, absolutely, and that's something like you said that doesn't happen often with the fourth line. It
Right.
just doesn't. That you're right. That's kind of the revolving door, the into the lineup. That's how you kind of come back in. Guys like Tanner Lazinski coming in for McEwen, but that's usually what you see. But we have not seen that. I don't know if Torts is turning over a new page or what, but I mean, just not making a ton of changes. Although I did find it interesting, Olivia, when she put out the lines on her Twitter today, she put them in a different order. So I wonder if they took line rushes in a different order.
Yeah, I honestly I didn't look at what order they were in. I'm reading them off the card that we get here. We get this really pretty little line sheet every game that folks on the stream can see it. They they put the lines out with their nationalities and flags and
stats.
Stats. It's a be honest with you, as a PR guy, it's something I resisted doing for years because it's a lot of extra work, but it's been like that in college game forever. And eventually enough pro scouts went and saw them in college games that they came back and we need this. So we do it now. But, it's in that order on the line sheet. So I guess we'll see. A lot of times it's been interchangeable this year, the top two lines and the bottom two lines.
Yeah, and Tort says that you can call them whatever you want.
Right.
It's just these are the lines. I don't care if you call, this line, this, 1, 2, or 3, it doesn't matter to me, or what pairing or whatever it is. But, he talked about Tony DeAngelo today, Torts, because he was asked about Tony, and he's really liked a lot of the things he's done offensively, but really those decisions to really take a guy out and end a play defensively is something that they've been really accentuating with Tony. So you're looking at a team in Los Angeles tonight. Maybe we see a little bit more buttoned up D from Tony DeAngelo. I think he's been chasing plays a little bit. We talked about that the other night. Defensively, defending even in the neutral zone. So I'll be interested to see what kind of performance Tony DeAngelo has from a defensive standpoint tonight.
Yeah, and when he said that, the first thing that I thought of immediately was the play where Scheifele scored the other night, where Tony chased this guy behind the net.
Yep.
And everybody up to and including Tony knows that he shouldn't have done that. But in my head, I'm thinking, okay, is he trying to close the guy out there and just commits too far and ends up back behind the net? And there maybe, I don't know if there's a fine medium there that they've got to straddle with all that, but certainly it's something that he's aware of, and it will come with time.
Yeah, sometimes you want to hand them off to your partner, not chase them all the way around. You hand them off to your partner, then you pick up the coverage in front or, wherever the play dictates. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. He's a guy that's very, offensively, he can do a ton, but the defensive ends of his game, never going to be his strength, but it's something that he can improve on. And it's something that Brad Shaw, like with Rasmus Ristolainen, is trying to get that part of the game to be, something that can be reliable in its process, if you will. So consistent in its process.
DeAngelo will play with Travis Sanheim again tonight. Ivan Provorov and Cam York listed second, and Nick Sealer and Rasmus Ristolainen listed. Right now, though, it's time to hand it off to Tim Saunders and Steve Coates. They're standing by with our countdown to face-off as the Philadelphia Flyers play host to the Los Angeles Kings here at Wells Fargo Center. That's coming up next here on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.